You have to pardon me as I put some lotion on my face. I can't come to you guys with a disheveled face. Gotta make a brother needs to look presentable before he speaks to the masses. Okay. Okay. Let me just rub the rest of the lotion in, and then we can get started, because I really want to talk about, well, if you guys can't already guess, I want to talk about Star Wars today. Because, actually, you know what? It'd probably make more sense if you guys could even see me. So, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Yo, peoples, Kyushu92 here, and welcome to a session where I'm talking about Star Wars and where it went wrong. Because Star Wars, where it is right now, it is not in a place where I can say I look forward to literally anything that they're doing. And it's kind of unfortunate to say that right now. So let me get into detail before anyone gets in arms and say, like, oh, you have a problem with this or you have a problem with that. Let's go from the beginning. So, what we got, let's just chronologically, let's go in order from how it started out. Fine. How it had like the prequel trilogies, which some people didn't like at first, but it grew on them over time. And then many years later, like what, 9 years later? 9 years later, we got the sequel trilogy. And that's when a great deal of people started to realize, oh, this is bad. Okay, so now the prequel trilogy is no longer as bad as I thought it was. Perhaps I treated you too harshly. And the sequel trilogy exists now, and each movie got worse and worse, culminating in the horrible Rise of Skywalker. The Last Jedi was horrendous, by the way. But the Rise of Skywalker, and I believe I did a review on that, where it just left me speechless in a way of how non-Star Wars it felt like. But that happened. Then we started to get some TV series after that. We started to get some solo movies like I think we got some like Rogue One, and then we got Han Solo, a Star Wars story. I didn't watch that. I didn't really care. Because my care for Star Wars really, really regressed after the sequel trilogy, to the point where it's like, I feel that way about Marvel movies now, where you can take it or leave it. I no longer have a drive for engaging in anything Star Wars related, simply because there are things being done to the Star Wars, story that doesn't make sense, but it's being forced to be part of the canon, and thus undermining okay, so everything that's being done in Star Wars right now seems to be looking at what George Lucas did and then saying, nah, we're going to do something else. We're actually going to turn this on its head, and then we're just going to change up the whole canon. And then, since it's part of the universe, because I got the command to do so, I can basically just change up everything you ever did for this story, which Star Wars was never complicated. It was never complicated. And I'm not saying it's complicated now, but Star Wars was not something you really need to think too hard about. And I feel like a lot of people who are in charge of Star Wars projects right now are thinking too hard about how to portray this entire universe. Case in point, Ryan Johnson tried to make basically tried to make a New Hope. Well, actually, it was J.J. Abrams who did that, and then Ryan Johnson did The Last Jedi, pretty much messing up character arcs for characters, such as like Luke Skywalker. He was like, the hero, the big hero. He helped his father redeem himself, brought the Force back into balance by destroying both himself and Palpatine, and Luke went on to become this great legendary Jedi. Of course, that all of that gets ruined by, J.J. Abrams and Liam Johnson saying like Luke ran away because he almost killed his own nephew, and then he just decided to distance himself from everything, which is not something that Luke would do. So that alone already makes no sense. Then they tried to introduce another super powerful character with Rey, and she went on about as well as you would expect. But instead of her being someone that you could grow with over time, she's just there. She's what you would call a Mary Sue character. And contrary to popular belief, that she's not a good character. Now, I got nothing against women characters in Star Wars. There's plenty of them that are, but I got nothing against them. However, I do have a problem when these types of characters, when female characters in Star Wars are written poorly. And then, if we don't accept how poorly they're portrayed or how poorly they're written, then we as the viewer, we're the issue. And that makes zero sense. Like Mara Jade, hey, Mara Jade is a good one. However, she's not considered canon, so Mara Jade might as well be an Elseworld character because the only canon are characters in the movies and TV shows, and that's basically it. And that's Disney's major malfunction, because by alienating the expanded universe of Star Wars, you've limited the Star Wars universe. So anything major that happened in any of the, because a lot of us, we grew up in elementary school and we would read the Star Wars books. She's still better. Oh, I know Mara Jade is better. She is leagues better than Rey could ever be. Rey is literally like a fraction of Anakin, and it makes no sense why they call it makes can we take over Lucasfilm? I mean, I I don't think they would be too kind. I don't think they would be too kind for us. Morning, Kitty. Good to see you. I don't think they take too kindly for us trying to take over Lucasfilm, because right now there are people being promoted inside of Lucasfilm right now, and specifically under Kathleen Kennedy, that are being told, "Hey, just do whatever you want with Star Wars. Don't even pay attention to anything that was established before. Just insert all these different things. We'll make it canon so that way you can just basically undermine decades, literal decades of story established. And then if anyone hates on it, we can call them either like racists, sexist, misogynist, whatever you want to call it. We can call them that because they don't accept what we call canon now. And I'm gonna get into a little bit of that right now, especially with the Acolyte. The Acolyte basically just showed everyone like, hey, you don't need to know how to write a story for you to get promoted to headline an entire 200 million, or I think it was like 189 million, or something close to 200 million dollars to overlook an entire Star Wars show. Never fully watched a Star Wars movie. If you haven't, what I would suggest is don't necessarily go in chronological order. Watch episode 6. I'm at episode 4, 5, and 6. Watch episodes 4, 5, and 6. And if you also want to, you can watch episodes 1, 2, and 3 after you watch the original trilogy. Because even though you can't watch it chronologically, there's just something about watching the original trilogy where you can just watch 4, 5, and 6, and then you can watch 1, 2, and 3, and it still flows. It still flows nicely. And since you say you never watched a Star Wars movie, I'm not going to spoil you on anything from the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy. There should be a Bible or a strict set of rules for Star Wars. No, because then the people who are in charge of making these bad shows now, then they'll feel like, oh, I'm not being given my freedom. Sorry, I was reading the comments there. Skeleton, good to see you. Also, Jake, I forgot to acknowledge your name when you showed up. It's good to see you, and CJ is good to see you as well. Um, the major issues with a lot of the Star Wars stuff that's being done now is that it's being written by people who don't appreciate Star Wars. And mind you, you don't necessarily have to. Now, let me say it like this: it's being done by people who see what George Lucas have done and think I can do it better by changing everything he did. 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3. That's messed up. See, here's the thing: the prequel trilogy came out after 4, 5, and 6. So the 4, 5, and 6 was done in like the 60s and 70s. I want to say like this, yeah, 70s. I think it was like the 70s, 60s, or 70s. Someone will correct me. But 4, 5, and 6 was done first. It was done first, but it didn't really have a prequel in mind. So George Lucas did 1, 2, and 3, you know, in 1999 onwards. And then it culminated in Revenge of the Sith, which was a very good Star Wars movie. I really liked that. But the problem with Star Wars right now is being written by people who don't have a real appreciation for Star Wars and the story that has been created thus far. I don't need these because I'm not listening to anything, so that way I can focus on you guys. Hold on. And it's being done by people who want to either want to do their own insert fan fiction, which is also being considered canon because Kathleen Kennedy is out here trying to, tell everyone that it's okay for this to be changed because it's canon now, and since Disney owns Star Wars and George Lucas doesn't anymore, now we can do whatever we want with it. Literally just butchering everything good about Star Wars right now and expecting people to like it. And when people don't like it, then those people are vilified. We can't call out poor writing. We can't call out poor acting. We can't call out how are you spending millions of dollars on these movies and TV shows, and it looks worse, less engaging, less interesting than anything we had when George Lucas was at the helm. I'm fire her and replace her with someone who really loves it. No, they can't fire her because then it'll seem like, oh, we fired her because she was a woman, and people will like to use that narrative. I'm going ahead and squash that right now. It doesn't matter if you're a woman, doesn't matter if you're a man, it doesn't matter if you can't decide in between. If your writing and decisions are trash, those things don't matter. You can't blame people for not liking you if you can't say those things and expect people to go along with it or expect people to feel like some type of way about it when basically what you're doing is just turning everything that we enjoyed about Star Wars into literal garbage. None of those types of complaints matter if you're just ruining stuff. You can't use those as an excuse. See, my thing is, Rey could have been fine if she was written properly, but she wasn't, and she turned out to be one of the worst things that Star Wars has introduced, and now Rey is getting another movie later on in the future. Like, who asked for this? No one did. No one who watched the movie, that is. But it doesn't matter what your preference is, what your lifestyle is. It doesn't matter. If your stuff is written poorly, and you expect people to like your drivel regardless, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. That's not a viewer problem. That's a you problem where you can't accept that people don't like what you do. So the issue with Star Wars now is that it's fire Kennedy and replace her with a fan who really loves Star Wars. Oh, don't worry, Jake. I know exactly who you mean. The problem with Star Wars is that it's trying to change everything that George Lucas has done and still expect people to appreciate it the way we did. Gotta head out, just saying hi to everyone. Kitty, it's been fantastic having you here for the past minute and a half. You have a fantastic day. I will see you in the next one you choose to stop by in. The problem with Star Wars now is that it's less about a galaxy a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And now it's more like, let's just do whatever in this galaxy a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And if people don't like it, then they're an issue. So let me just go ahead and squash this whole thing about why I don't like Star Wars now. So I've been following The Acolyte. I haven't been watching the episodes because I'm not about to give Disney Plus my views. I have, however, been watching vicariously through other people who are reacting to these episodes and, looking at scripts and everything, and just basically synopses of these episodes of The Acolyte. And there are so many things that don't make sense and just seem very stupid in The Acolyte. And mind you, the show is still ongoing, but it's already shown itself to be uh, very incompetent with its writing. So what we and also there's some very bad acting in it as well, and it doesn't feel like a Star Wars show. It feels like a Disney show trying to be Star Wars. There's a very stark difference in between the two. If I watch The Mandalorian, that feels Star Wars to me. I would love to have another season of The Mandalorian, but we got The Acolyte, which is supposed to be like 100 years before the events of the prequel trilogy, and you got the Jedi who are being portrayed as these bad guys. Now, mind you, the Jedi have been narrow-minded before, especially during the prequel trilogy, where they're all like, no, we can't train Anakin because he's too old, and they're kind of stuck in their ways. And because they're being stuck in their ways, it is what allowed Palpatine to, like get closer to Anakin and manipulate him and tell him like, they don't trust you, do this, do that. Good, good, let the hate flow through you. And you can see that the Jedi have they recognize that, well, it would pretty much, it's too late at the end where they recognize that maybe things should have been different if we weren't so uptight about it. Now, one of the exceptions to this rule is Qui-Gon Jinn, and I know it seems like I'm flip-flopping from all over the place, but Qui-Gon Jinn is the perfect example of what a Jedi should be. Sure, follows the ways of the Force, and he's still a Jedi, but he is also loose with how he behaves as a Jedi. Like, he sees Anakin, and Anakin is like a being conceived by the midichlorians, and the Acolyte basically tries to copy that, because spoilers for the third episode of the Acolyte introduces the concept of another virgin birth, which is essentially how they did for Anakin, and they tried to introduce it, but with two twin girls through two moms instead, because with Anakin, he will like, there was no father. Shmi Skywalker just carried him and gave birth to him, but there was no father. In the Acolyte episode 3, two girls who are the two main characters in the Acolyte, they are both conceived by these, I wouldn't say night sisters, but they're basically witches, and they manipulate the Force in order to create these girls. So it's like and Leslie Headland is the head of the Acolyte, and you can clearly see that she has absolutely no idea what she's doing with Star Wars. So the whole thing is like, she's right there, right next to George Lucas, and she's all like, "Can I study your work?" Is it like, sure, but just don't copy it. And she not only copies what George Lucas did, but also tries to introduce, like, hey, before Anakin, who was conceived by the Force, there were two other girls who did it first 100 years prior. So it's like, what? And people don't look at it as like, oh, that's unique. See, the problem that people are doing, the problem that stems from this is like, people do this and expect people to be like, oh, this is just like Anakin. No, it's like, why are you copying what they did with Anakin? It's not like, surprise. It's more like rolled eyes. Like, okay, they're trying to do the exact same thing with Anakin. However, it comes off as like, you really don't have any original ideas if you're just trying to copy another concept that really cemented Anakin as like a legendary character in Star Wars. But the difference is Anakin was, literally conceived in the process, because, and this is like, this goes like fan theories and because of other stories that happen, that he was born of the Force because Darth Plagueis and Sidious, they tried to create a perfect being that was stemmed in the dark side, and instead the Force bucking up against them created Anakin in order for him to be born, so that he can, bring balance to the Force later on in life, to be the antithesis to the Sith. Even though he became a Sith, he still prevailed in the end. And that's his whole story. Like the whole 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2, and 3, that's his whole story of how he was born, he rose, he fell, he rose again, and then he took out the Sith. So when you introduce another set of characters who are trying to use that same spiel, but it's like you're just manipulating the Force to create life, and it's easy with no repercussions. It's like an alchemist in Full Metal Alchemist trying to create stuff without equivalent exchange, and it comes off as sloppy. It comes off as very sloppy, and it really doesn't make sense, because who remembers in the original trilogy when Yoda just basically says, like, the Force is all around us, it penetrates us, it binds us, and it was Obi-Wan who said it. Obi-Wan said it was the Force that penetrates us, it binds us all together, and it's a Force to be in all living things. Not once does he say we manipulate the Force however we choose. It is not something that you can just command. It is something that you allow to flow through you. That has always been the process. But here in the Acolyte, it gets introduced that you can basically just manipulate the Force to accomplish whatever you want now, apparently. And not only that, but it's also been in the previous, like the sequel trilogy, where the Force is capable of doing things that it shouldn't be capable of. Like Force ghosts are suddenly able to interact with the real world, like Yoda commanding lightning to destroy a tree, or Luke as a Force ghost catching a lightsaber before it flies into some burning wreckage. Stuff that shouldn't be possible at all, but feels like they just did it for either dramatic moments and it's never seen or heard from again, and it just comes off as very, very sloppy. So now we have the Acolyte, and you can already tell that public opinion was not going to go well for the Acolyte, simply because Kathleen Kennedy and company tried to do damage control before the first episode aired, saying stuff like, this show wasn't made for you, it was made for real Star Wars fans. No, real Star Wars fans would have an issue with this as well. So I don't know who you're trying to fool into thinking that, oh, this is just going to be universally accepted. And it doesn't help that the show just feels sloppy in its writing, stuff that doesn't make sense. And the characters are written poorly. Like, there's this one character, and he's played by the guy that is the main guy in Squid Game. I forget his name. It's Jedi Master Moss or Voss. I forget his name. And at one point, he says a line. I'm trying to remember because I just heard it yesterday. He said a line where it's like, right now I am praying for an asteroid to hit us so we could start over again. Yeah, don't pray for that. Disney cosplaying Star Wars, as South Park so eloquently parried Kathleen Kennedy, put a chick in it and make her or it lame and gay. That's pretty much what they're doing right now. So do they realize they don't have to take what South Park says seriously? I really wish that Disney would have more property utilize the Legends characters and stories, as well as George Lucas's original plans. The Force is female. See, it isn't. It isn't. No matter how many times you want that to catch on, it's not going to catch on. Because those with actual brain cells realizes, like, stop it, and you're not even taking it in a literal sense. It's not. The Force isn't gender specific. It's universal. It's not selectively. Because here's the thing, you never heard a single person say the Force is male. Ever. Ever. Why? Because that's a dumb thing to say. So why say the Force is female? And expect people to be okay with it and think like, oh, well, that's fine. Because if a dude said it, it would be an issue. It'd be an issue. But if a woman says it, now all of a sudden you can't say anything against it, otherwise you have a problem with women, which is untrue. But those without brain cells seem to think otherwise. So I'm just in a position where I look at Star Wars and I wonder where it all went wrong. Wait, people are actually saying and believing that? I thought people said that as a joke. No, that was actually spoken by Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy, she even had a shirt that said that. And mind you, that was a shirt she wore leading up to The Force Awakens because Rey was going to be a main character. That's real. That is actually real. But it's said like a joke now because no one takes it seriously, because the effort behind making that being taken seriously is done poorly and yet still expected to be accepted. That's the issue. So when I look at these sequel trilogies where they try to make you think like, oh, these characters are well written, they're not. There's a lot of things wrong with the sequel trilogy, and there's a lot of things wrong with TV shows now. I think the only exception to good to moderately good storytelling in recent Star Wars TV shows history is Andor is pretty much the cream of the crop when it comes to good story writing and just an all-around good show. Mind you, I still have to watch Andor, but from what people have said and just like public opinion about Andor, and this comes from people who are incredibly critical of literally everything Star Wars related, Andor is good. Then underneath that is The Mandalorian. Then underneath that, you got your Ahsokas, your Book of Boba Fett's, and now, clearly at the bottom of the barrel, we have The Acolyte. Like I said, the show still isn't over, but I highly doubt it's going to actually do anything to redeem itself in terms of, like, people wanting to take it seriously. And I said all that to say this. My own opinion about Star Wars is that I'm not even on the fence about it. I'm not even on the fence about it. I just look at Star Wars and I'm like, okay. But what happened? The Bad Batch was still great? Oh no, The Bad Batch was fine. I watched that last episode. I liked it. And there were moments where I was watching Crosshair where I was all like, yeah, I need to play a game where I could be a sniper now. So shows like that, those shows, the 3D shows were fine. I haven't seen Tales of the Empire, and I heard that it was all right. I heard that it was all right, but not amazing. But I'll look into that. But Star Wars as a whole, to me, it went from being like something like, hold on, let me see. It went from being like something I'm proud to say like, oh, I got a lightsaber now, to being something where it feels like, I don't know if I want to dedicate any more time to this series. Like it just felt that way to me. Also, this is by far one of my best purchases that I ever made in my life. Just getting the Mace Windu lightsaber. Still works. Even after all this time, I haven't changed out the batteries. Let me see. Okay, there we go. So, what went wrong? Let's just make this whole let's just get back to the topic, the title topic here. What went wrong? One, George Lucas sold the rights to Star Wars to Disney, and Disney hasn't shown itself capable of keeping that same level of energy and same level of attention to detail to Star Wars as George Lucas since they got their hands on Star Wars as a whole. And then they started to allow people who either don't really care about Star Wars or are trying to insert their own agenda into Star Wars. They're giving them free reign to basically do whatever they want to with the story. And then are calling out people who are calling out poor writing, poor acting, wasting millions upon millions of dollars on shows that really don't deserve that much money or don't even show that level. Because here's the thing, throwing millions of dollars at a project does not guarantee it's going to be successful. Throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at a show doesn't mean it's actually going to get good reviews. You can make it one of the most visually appealing things ever. But if the writing is trash and the story is trash, no one is going to care how good it looks. That's my opinion for the Avatar movies. You could spend all those millions upon billions of dollars making the most realistic CGI that you want. But if the dialogue and the story is meh, I don't care about that. So when the writing is poor, that's just a waste of a couple $100 million. And what makes it so crazy is that the budget just keeps increasing, but the quality doesn't. You would think that spending millions upon millions of dollars on something would ensure that, okay, let's get the best writer for this. Let's get the best people on top of this. The best kind of people to act these out that can make the most sense. Let's make sure that if we get more than one writer, that they're all on the same page. But that's not the case, though. Sorry, I'm reading what you guys are saying in chat. Let me see. Star Wars back to the way it was. Barriss should have died on Felucia. She should have, but they decided to keep her alive so she could be part of Tales of the Empire. That's Hollywood in a nutshell these days. Yes, that is. Let's see, I'm a Legends fan. I'm a Legends fan as well because the canon is so little on detail. I love reading Legend stuff. Like, you can't get no full-on details of the slave one. I'm not calling it the fire spray fighter. I'm not calling it the fire spray. The slave one. So many details, its modifications and stuff, like a long list of information. And then you go to canon, and it only includes the knowledge of, okay, this is the ship in Book of Boba Fett, and in the episode 5, and the Mandalorian, and that's it. And it's just a small amount of information because that's what's considered canon, just that amount of information. But throwing money at a project does not guarantee it's going to be successful. Throwing money at a project is not going to guarantee that it's going to be good. You throw like hundreds of millions of dollars at a Star Wars show, but if everything that contains it is just utter garbage, then what do you expect people to do? You expect us to just accept it just because you spent a whole bunch of money on it? No, that's not how that works. See, when I was growing up and I would watch the original trilogy, that was a story. It didn't need to go super in-depth. It didn't need to hammer out any topics that it really was trying to hit your head with. It didn't need to use any... It didn't need to force any real-world knowledge into its story for it to be like, oh, I understand now. It didn't need to do all that. It just, George Lucas told a story. It was contained, and the thing that gets me about not just the original trilogy, but also the prequel trilogy, is that it didn't need to go overboard for you to understand what was going on. Episode 4. Okay, we got Luke Skywalker who runs into his long-lost sister Leia. They don't know it at the time. And then they see Obi-Wan Kenobi, they see the Death Star, we encounter Darth Vader. And as the series goes on, you know that there's something going on, and all the stuff gets explained to you. And then we get to episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. We got Han, we got Leia, they start to become a thing, and then we got Luke who discovers Yoda. Yoda speaks to him, more exposition, but it's done in a good way. It doesn't need to beat you over the head of what the story is because you understand it through good acting, good story, and everything is cohesive. Then we get to Return of the Jedi, where it culminates in the journey of not only Luke, but also with Vader. And then not only are all the Sith destroyed, let me say that again, not only all the powerful Sith, the 2 remaining Sith in the galaxy destroyed, the Force is brought back into balance. So then we get the prequel trilogy, where we are basically introduced to Anakin Skywalker, and we understand the path he went through the journey he went through, going from, okay, this little slave kid on Tatooine, we find out that he was basically conceived by the Force to later become the adversary for Sith, but he was led astray. Well, I'll get into that. And then we see Qui-Gon Jinn. We see a person who we know to be the exemplary, the shining example of what a Jedi should be. Like all of them, every single one of the people on the Jedi Council, they were basically stuck in their ways and couldn't see anywhere other than what the code said. Oh, the code said, the code, the rules, the rules, the rules. But Qui-Gon was like, capable of bending the rules. He was like, he didn't believe in like sticking to like one specific doctrine. He was all like, this kid, he is incredibly powerful in the Force. I'm willing to break the code in order to train this child because he could be the one to bring the Force back into balance. So we need to guide him. And he was also the closest thing that Anakin had to a father figure because he chose to treat Anakin with like genuine compassion. Genuine compassion. He didn't treat him as like a person to be trained under the Force. He treated him like a person, spoke to him like a person. Like the way Qui-Gon was explaining midichlorians to Anakin, it was like a father teaching a son. It wasn't like a teacher teaching a student, which is what Obi-Wan tried to do in the Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Qui-Gon was like, let me approach this differently. And then, get to know him, speak to him like a human being and not like this prophecy child that I should just treat as strictly a prophecy child. You see that level of detail with Qui-Gon as an individual, but you also see how much the Council and pretty much every other Jedi lacks that sort of mindset, which inevitably led to their downfall. So Qui-Gon dies, the last chance for Anakin to have like a true father figure that can help him understand the ways of the Force, but also behave like a proper person. He dies. Obi-Wan says he's going to train Anakin, and at first the council was all like, nah, he's too old, we don't want him. But he's the chosen one. He too old. Great fear I have in his training. And then but they are reluctant. They're reluctant, but then Yoda's all like, yeah, your apprentice Skywalker will be. Then we get Attack of the Clones, and we see that everything that Qui-Gon could have imparted onto Anakin gets overwritten by Obi-Wan's need to be, like, by the book, and not be as understanding. Not be as understanding as Qui-Gon is. So it goes from being like a father-son relationship that Anakin had with Qui-Gon to being a master-student, teacher-student relationship. Which, of course, breeds a lot of contention because Anakin, being accepted into the Jedi at such an old age, he already has this emotional side to him that constantly butts heads with Obi-Wan's needs to basically behave like Byakuya from Bleach. Though Obi-Wan is slightly less. Obi-Wan is essentially Byakuya after the events of Aizen's betrayal to the Gote 13 in Bleach. So that's Obi-Wan. That is Obi-Wan. He's far more accepting like Byakuya near the end of after Aizen's betrayal. But the contention between the two, it's very apparent, and then, Anakin will openly argue with his master in front of people. Like, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. You go literally gonna get in an argument in public? In public, you gonna get in trouble with people in public? So that already makes there's character development, but you can see that like there's a bit of a dark side to Anakin where he's not completely sold on the light. So we get that. And then story goes on. He's fallen in love with Padme, and then Padme falls in love with him. Events transpire. He loses an arm. They get married. We get Yoda. Like I'm saying all this like I'm going through the synopsis of basically all these stories. And there's still a level. The fact that I'm going through all of this, there is still a level of cohesion with these stories. Like, sure, you can argue like some things really didn't need to be in the prequel trilogy, but they're far and few between, though. They are far and few between compared to like the sequel trilogy and the shows that we're getting right now. That because that same level of care is no longer there for Star Wars. Hold on. Let me move this so that way I can lean just a little bit. That same level of care that we got from the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, even more care for the prequel trilogy, it's no longer there. Because it just went into like, okay, let's just make summer blockbusters. That's the difference between the 6 Star Wars films, 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2, and 3, and the sequel trilogy and what's being made with Disney now. This stuff feels like it's blockbuster TV shows and blockbuster movies instead of them feeling like Star Wars movies. And that's the problem. Because we didn't come to the movie theater to watch a blockbuster film. We came to watch a Star Wars film. There's a distinct difference. A blockbuster film would be John Wick. Blockbuster film would be Dune, Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire. Those are blockbuster films. But Star Wars has set itself apart with being like, okay, this is its own movie and should be treated as such, and it should be still stemmed in like not only its own mythos, but the same level of respect should permeate throughout every episode. Every attention to detail that we liked from 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2, and 3 should continue through all of those movies. Everything. That same level of appreciation we have for those 6 films should be there for 7, 8, and 9 and the shows that came afterwards. But it's not. Why? Because people are getting hired to do Star Wars that not only don't understand it, but choose to do things their own way and think that they are doing a better job and refuse to accept when people don't like when they do, because they'll take to social media, they'll take to Twitter, they'll take to news articles to say like, well, it's men's fault that this movie did bad. No! The movie did bad because you can't write, because you can't direct, because you're trying to push your own life story or whatever you're trying to do into these movies that don't have a place for it, and you expect everyone to accept it, but fail to see why it sucks. I believe that having too many writers on any one project could be troublesome if there's no shared vision or desire. Exactly. Too many cooks in one kitchen doesn't mean that food is going to be cooked. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the food is going to be good. It means that there's going to be a lot of different tastes. Some cooks will probably undercook some things. Some will probably overcook it. And some will do it just right, but it'll get buried because the other 2 cooks think they've done a good job. Too many cooks in one place does not result in a fantastic 5-course meal. It results in an assortment of different things that are going to be presented before you. Some may taste good, some may taste bad, and some may taste all right, but you won't know it until you start consuming. And that's the dangerous part. You got to consume some of this stuff before you realize, okay, this is bad. Didn't Anakin start the family tradition of having missing limbs? Yes, he did. He did. Literally lost his arm when he was fighting Count Dooku. That started it off right then. Then he lost the rest of his limbs to Obi-Wan in Episode 3. So then you get the sequel trilogy that tries to copy what the original trilogy did, trying to remake A New Hope, and it seemed alright at first. But then it was The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker that said like, that's a long way down into that bottomless pit. Wonder what's at the bottom. And then just takes a nosedive directly into it. So characters whom many of us come to respect. Han Solo, who was like this, he was a scoundrel, he was a renegade, but at the same time he knew where his priorities were and never neglected his friends. Turns out deadbeat dad, just decides to go off on his own. Him and Leia are apparently separated or something, and they don't see each other anymore. And it's like, okay, so Han, who would always be there for his friends, who truly loved Leia, suddenly becomes someone who's never there. He's an absentee father, and he just decides to stay out of the picture until the very last second. Then you have Finn, who is a stormtrooper who has a conscience, who also turns out to be a Force-sensitive individual, but they don't do nothing with it. So you remember how we got the trailers for the Force Awakens back in the day. And I can say back in the day because it was like, what, 9 years ago that the Force Awakens came out? Hold on, let me look this up. Hold on, let me look this up. The Force Awakens. I gotta look this up. Hold on. I'm not gonna look on my computer because, yeah, 9 years ago, 2015. 2015. 9 years ago. That's how long ago it was. The Force Awakens. So, remember seeing the trailer and Finn was shown holding a lightsaber. You thought he was going to be the main character. But then it's like, no, he's not going to be the main character at all. And even that one moment where he has a lightsaber, it's short-lived because it turns out Rey's the Jedi. Can't remember most of the Force Awakens. I can only remember the parts where the characters I actually cared about showed up, such as Leia and Han and Chewie and R2-D2 and C-3PO. And that awkward, super awkward, long pause of silence when Rey found Luke on that one planet, and he's just standing there, and it's just swirling away, and then it cuts to credits. In my opinion, Finn should have been the new Black Jedi. Yes, he should have been, but they wasted him. They wasted him completely, and they made him worse and worse, and just turned him into like comic relief throughout all of the movies, to the point where he stopped being Finn the Stormtrooper, stopped being Finn the Resistance member, and just became the character that screams Rey in every episode. Because, remember how Sam was always screaming Optimus's name in all the Transformers films? That's Finn. That's Finn in all of the movies. Just screaming Rey's name as if Rey is going to be the end-all, be-all reason to solve all of the problems of Star Wars. And the reason why Rey fails to match up to the potential or world renown as Anakin or literally anyone else from the previous films is that she's supposed to be like this Swiss Army knife of everything. Good at navigating ships. She's a perfect pilot. She's a perfect fighter. She does everything great. She does everything without flaw whatsoever. Even able to resist a Jedi mind trick or mind intrusion, having never experienced it before, and completely resisting it we find out that she's a Palpatine, but that shouldn't be the case if you're going up against a Skywalker, because Skywalkers are notoriously strong. Anakin, Leia, Luke, and also Ben as well. Kylo Ren. They're all technically incredibly strong. Incredibly strong. Now, the crazy thing is, my thing about Rey is that she could have been a fantastic character. I got nothing against Rey being a woman at all, but I do have a thing about women characters being written poorly, and you're still supposed to just accept it, and if you don't, then you're sexist, or you got a problem with women, or you hate women. That narrative has basically died out. You can't stop using that as an excuse. It's not an excuse. Stop using that as an excuse just because you can't write. So, I got nothing against Rey being a woman. I do have a problem against Rey being written to be basically perfect with no flaws, never doing anything that could cause her character to be seen as awful, even though she has done quite a few things. Remember when she, shot out a stream of force lightning and thought she blew up the ship that Chewie was being arrested in The Rise of Skywalker? No one called her out or made her feel less than herself because she could have potentially killed Chewie. Everyone was all like, "Oh, it's okay, Rey. It's all right. Let's all just be sad." No, she would have been called out like, "Why did you do that?" If it was written properly, she would have been called out for doing something so dangerous. And it was all like, I don't know what happened. And then people would be looking at her like, oh, she's dangerous. See, we've seen that done in movies before, where people suddenly display this astronomically strong power. And then people who saw them normally would be all like, I didn't know you could do that. And then some people start to behave differently around them, thinking like, that's the freak that's over there that shot lightning out of her hands. In most movies, you see that happen and you have to deal with that person dealing with being looked at differently because they displayed something they never displayed before. Like humans look at mutants in the X-Men movies, who didn't show their powers until later on, and then they start looking at them differently, like, oh, that's a mutant. And then you start seeing people behave around them differently. If it was written properly, you could have had a moment like that. But no. No consequences for doing something potentially seen as dangerous. No one feels any different towards Rey at all after seeing her literally blow up an entire ship with force lightning. And they just continue on. And then the whole weight of thinking that Chewie just died, it's soon, lifted when you find out that he was brought on Kylo Ren's ship, and it's all like, oh. So now I don't need to feel, you don't need to feel any sort of, now you basically just eliminated the whole feeling of like feeling bad about potentially losing Chewbacca. Now, when you look at that scene again, it's all like, oh, he's alive. This scene is now unnecessary. So, what I don't like about Rey as a character is how she's perceived as a person that has absolutely no flaws. She can be mad at anyone. She can do whatever she wants, and no one calls her out on it. Mind you, everyone calls out Poe on literally everything that he does. Literally everything that he does. Rest in peace, the original Chewbacca actor. Yes. There's my thing. Force lightning caused by anger. Rey doesn't look angry. See, there's also a great example of what you're talking about with Dai in the Dragon Quest anime. Oh, there's a moment where he does something that is considered, impossible or scary or powerful, and then people start looking at him differently because he has this power? Is that what you mean? But Rey as a character is literally, and the thing is, Kathleen Kennedy really did her best. She really did her best. Bless her heart. She really did her best to try and put Rey out there as a shining example for little girls everywhere. And mind you, little girls everywhere, they can dress up as Rey all they want to, but they should not use Rey as an example of how to be in life. Because Rey is capable of doing anything she wants, and then everyone just accepts it. That's a bad message to send little girls. No matter what she does, she will never be called out on it or told her that she's wrong. And if she's told she's wrong, then everyone just drops it and just lets her continue on her merry way. That's a bad example to set for little girls. Rey can get mad and upset and then just bogart her way through every situation, and then no one can stand in her way. That's a bad example to set for little girls. Just Rey's character as a whole is not something that girls should aspire to be. Mind you, Luke is a fine example of how boys growing up should be. Willing to let bygones be bygones. Be calm in certain situations. Try to be diplomatic rather than trying to go straight towards fighting all the time. Because Rey is very prone to anger, especially when she gets mad and upset. When she got the Wayfinder inside of the Death Star that somehow managed to have chunks that fell to a planet that was nowhere near where the Death Star was, She got mad and upset and angry that Kylo Ren had the Wayfinder and then wanted to fight him and try and kill him because he destroyed the Wayfinder in order to find Exegol. We'll get to that in a minute. So her just lashing out and being angry, yeah, this is the person you want little girls to follow and be a shining example of. Versus Luke, mind you, original trilogy Luke, not sequel trilogy Luke, because sequel trilogy Luke is basically a joke compared to his original version. Luke was willing to literally throw his weapon off to the side because he trusted that his father would come back to the light, even if it meant the cost of his life. He wasn't going to give in to anger. He wasn't going to give in to hate. He wasn't going to follow the ways of the dark side in order to accomplish his own ends. He wasn't going to try and bogart his way and make stuff happen. Dude was taught how to be calm. He was taught how to, let the force flow. Let it be mindful. Calm, thoughtful, compassionate, but also, when the going gets tough, he'll get the job done, but he's not going to do it in a way that will endanger those he cares about. He gets more and more focused and more and more careful, but also more and more precise as the series goes on. And that's an example that boys should aspire to be. Be mindful of your feelings, be calm, try and be diplomatic and try and talk things out, because he tries to talk things out. When he starts to fully embrace his Jedi role, he tries to talk things out, trying to reach a reasonable conclusion to things. And when it doesn't really pan out, he just goes with the flow and tries to make sure that the outcome is, favorable for him and his friends. But with Rey, it's like, I'm going to do whatever I want, and people are just along for the ride because they can't think for themselves. And it's all like, I'm going with Rey. What are you going to do, Finn? Literally nothing. Literally nothing. Literally nothing. What are you going to do with Rey, Poe? I'm just tagging along to be like the comic relief man number 2. The thing is, female characters aren't meant to be flawed or to show growth. They are to be perfect or very close to it right out of the bag. See, the reason why Rey's character doesn't work is because everything that she accomplished, she's all the things that make her powerful, all the things that make her great, she's always had it. There's no character growth moment for her. There's no moments where she second guesses herself and thinking, like, maybe what I'm doing is wrong. There's really isn't any moment where Rey has a character development moment where you can actually appreciate Rey as a character who actually had growth. She hasn't had any time to grow because she was already perfect right like you said, right out of the bag. Luke was flawed in the beginning. He was compulsive. He was argumentative. He was all like, I was just going to go to the Toshi station to get some power converters. No, after. You can waste time with your friends later. Right now, I need you. All right, we're good. The thing is, female characters aren't meant to be flawed or to show growth. They are to be perfect, very out of the bag, very close to it, right out of the bag. Oh no, he's okay. He's not Skeleton. He's not asking a question or anything. He's stating that that's the way characters are in Star Wars right now. So I want to get back to topic here of where it all went wrong. So they are introducing people who are directing all of these shows to either have an agenda or have no understanding of Star Wars, and they're being given full reign to just manipulate every aspect of the Star Wars story to suit their needs, rather than to create a brand new story that can join with everything else that is Star Wars. They're creating these stories that just feel like self-inserts or are being done by people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing. So I'm just like, I no longer I'm no longer. I'm trying to find the right words. I'm trying to find the right words. I'm trying to find the right words for this. It is sad how this is the norm for Star Wars now. Instead of it being a space opera, it seems like a space biography of whoever is directing these shows and these movies right now. And it is mind numbing how these people are allowed to helm these shows and then expect people to like them. Cuz it's like me. It would be like me. Uh or stuff just to push their own agendas without the care the damage it has done to Star Wars. Exactly. Exactly right. Just going to push my own agenda for this TV show. And, because the one thing you can tell is when The Acolyte came out is that Kathleen Kennedy told Leslie Headland that, okay, you've made a Star Wars show. Now make a Leslie Headland show. No one is interested in a Leslie Headland show. They are interested in Star Wars. So The Acolyte is not a Star Wars show. It is a Leslie Headland show. So if you're expecting it to respect anything related to Star Wars, you might as well just opt out now. Because the damage it's done to Star Wars is a lot, almost irreparable if you ask me. Oh no, you're not far off. You're not far off. It has been 9 years since we had the sequel trilogy and almost a decade of things being done to Star Wars that don't make much sense, that would take an equal amount of time to bring people back into. It's almost like the damage done to the DCU, where we had the Justice League, Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and the damage done with that universe, I mean, it's been felt throughout all of these years. And even if Gunn is trying to create a brand new universe with a new DCEU, we all feel the effects of just how bad the previous DCEU was. Only a few things about it were redeemable, and that was the actors and actresses who portrayed these characters. Such as, basically, Viola Davis is pretty much a perfect Amanda Waller. Henry Cavill, fantastic Superman. Don't know why they decided to, not make another Superman movie. Let alone having him appear in front of Black Adam, and it's like classic Superman. It's the damage done by the previous DCEU that's been done already, and you're never gonna repair that. You're never gonna repair that, or at least it will take you several years to repair that because we are not stupid. Fool us once, shame on you. Fool us twice, shame on me. But fool us 3 times? No. See, the damage done to Star Wars is so deep that there is not a new hope, but no hope. That's where we're at right now. There's no new hope for Star Wars. There's no hope for Star Wars. And I say that as a person who loves Star Wars. What I love about Star Wars is no longer present in Star Wars. It just feels like do whatever you want with Star Wars now with no level of care that we got from any of the previous series. I know it sounds like I'm going on a rant, and I don't care who, and frankly, I'm just throwing this out there, and whoever wants to, whoever takes this in, if you're watching this for the very first time, I'm going on a rant about Star Wars, so take it however you want. But what I loved about Star Wars is no longer present in Star Wars. Least of all the TV shows, the live action TV shows and movies. The animated stuff, I could watch that all the time. I could watch the Clone Wars, the 2D Clone Wars. I could watch The Bad Batch. I could watch those. I could play the games. Mind you, they got to be specific games because you can't play every Star Wars game right now because it's not guaranteed it's going to have the same level of care as Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor. I want to say out of all the Star Wars stuff I've entertained recently, those are by far the last great Star Wars things we got. And that is sad to say that the last great Star Wars thing we got were video games. Not the new movies, not the new TV shows, but video games. Even if a movie comes out that makes sense and is actually almost impossible of happening nowadays, but a hypothetical, no one will care because of all these bad shows and movies. Yeah, people are going to be on the defensive of whether or not they should entertain this new thing from Star Wars now. That's how much damage has been done to this entire franchise, to the point where people are no longer going to be going out to the theaters in droves just to see these movies, simply because the damage done to the Star Wars name has just been dragged through the mud by people who think mud is cool to throw on things. So Kathleen Kennedy, Leslie Headland, Ryan Johnson, basically everyone who looked at Star Wars and said, like, no, I'm going to do something different. They are the ones to blame for why Star Wars is horrible now. They're the ones to blame. And it's a sad state of affairs. I see The Mandalorian is the best Star Wars. I don't like the other shows. Mary, I don't blame you. Also, welcome, Mary. I don't blame you. I like The Mandalorian. I do. Some people may not like it, but I like The Mandalorian. And my desire for a Mandalorian game continues to increase, even though there was reports of them canceling a first-person Mandalorian game, and we're getting Star Wars Outlaws instead. I do not care about that. I, as an individual, I like The Mandalorian and what it is, and that's the last thing Star Wars show related that I'll actually entertain. I don't really care about anything else. And it's sad that I'm saying that, because I love the Sith, I love the Jedi, I love all the aspects of their history and whatnot, and I like to see that portrayed well. But when it isn't, you make me like those instances less. A key lesson I've learned is perception is key, and even if they start doing good movies, it'll be a very slow process of people actually caring and giving it a chance, because... Exactly. See, first impressions are everything. If the first show you helm is horrible, then it's just gonna lessen, the perception of Star Wars is so negatively perceived. Ain't that insane? Star Wars used to be one of the biggest franchises in the entire world, to the point where you don't even need to speak the same language to understand Star Wars with some people. You could go to a convention and see people from different nationalities just dressed in different stormtrooper outfits, bounty hunter outfits, Jedi, Sith outfits, so many Darth Vaders, so many Commander Rexes, so many Leias, so many Lukes, even little baby Yodas if you put them in costumes and whatnot. So many Wookiees, so many people will come together because they love Star Wars. However, Star Wars is no longer one of the biggest franchises in the world simply because it has good shows and good stuff going in it, because that's no longer the case anymore. It's literally just yet another franchise that exists. You can't put it on a high-tier list of one of the most well-regarded franchises in history anymore. People only refer to that to the original trilogy and the prequel trilogies now. Most do not count the sequel trilogies simply because of how bad all three of those movies were, leading into how much worse Star Wars would get with their TV shows, with only The Mandalorian and Andor being the few exceptions, and that's it. And the video games. Everything else? Let's just close my eyes and throw this dart at whatever we're going to do for this TV show. And if it goes out the window, then we do rock, paper, scissors for what the topic will be. The problem is it's becoming too much content with less creativity. You're exactly right. We have too much points of views to have the same characters over and over. That is by far one of the best things said today. One of the best things said today. There's no more creativity with Star Wars. There's no more wonder. What happened to the wonder of Star Wars? When we started out, the wonder of going into space and starfights and the Jedi and the Sith. There was wonder with the original trilogy. There was wonder with the prequel trilogy. There was wonder with the Clone Wars and both the 2D and the 3D ones. There was so much wonder and creativity with those shows. What happened to the level of competence necessary to create great stories? What happened to that? Now it's just like, well, I'll just take whatever I see on Twitter and incorporate it into a Star Wars show. Let me say this. From one of the episodes, the recent episode 3 of The Acolyte, the concept of spice cream, ice cream, is introduced. To whoever wrote that into the show, how dumb are you? Because most of us who know the concept of spice in Star Wars know that spice is considered a highly addictive narcotic. So why would you introduce the concept of spice cream? Are you insinuating that this ice cream has spice on it and it is literally a narcotic on top of ice cream that you give to children? So that shows you that they don't have any idea what they're doing with Star Wars. Like Spice Runners in Star Wars, that stuff is a drug. It's a narcotic drug. And then the Acolyte introduces the concept of spice cream. It's not for adults. It's like kids going after spice cream. Spice is a drug. Are you smoking? But we're supposed to just pass that off as passing dialogue. But for those of us who pay attention, spice is not a good thing, especially not in the hands of children. What? And then introducing the Force as something that you could just freely manipulate. I'm surprised the orchestra are still doing music for these bad Star Wars movies and TV shows. You gotta pay the bills sometime. They don't know nothing that's going on with the story. They just gotta do the music. However, whoever they have composing this music kind of doesn't understand the feel of Star Wars, because some of the music you can hear in these shows nowadays doesn't necessarily feel Star Wars. It just feels orchestral basic. With Star Wars, there's still so much potential. There's planets you could explore. You could further explore the different colored lightsabers and explore the meaning behind those colors. You could literally go towards the outer rim and go towards the edge of the universe. You could create a story like the Yuzhong Vong, which are a race of aliens looking to conquer the entire galaxy, but they exist on literally the unknown zone of space outside of the known galaxy. Even the books are becoming the same, 300 plus books. I read 27 of them to find many of them are so slow with the arc and just copy and paste from each other. No creativity whatsoever. I'm so happy that you said you read 27 books. That's 300 plus books, read 27 of them, and they just feel so similar to each other. Remember Star Wars chapter books in elementary school, and you would get them from the library? Those were good books. Those were real good books. But now, the creativity necessary for Star Wars to remain relevant, that creativity is gone. And it's disappointing. Because now, should I have kids in the future? I would like to have kids in the future. I'm only going to show them the original trilogy and the prequel ones. If they ask me what the sequel trilogy is, I'm going to say, I'll wait until you're older. Wait until you're older. Wait until you have an understanding of the concept of good writing in a story. Yes, spice is narcotic in real life. Oh no, it's not just it's not another word for narcotic in real life. It's an actual narcotic thing in Star Wars. That's the reason why when you see people going after trying to be a spice runner, or in different shows you see people selling spice, it's because spice in and of itself is you know what? Let's do a little bit of a deep dive. Star Wars spice. Literally, the first thing it says is spice was the name of a type of illicit substance or substances in demand throughout the galaxy. Let's see, what is its uses? Let's see. Let's see how Grandmaster would sound on spice. The Pike Syndicate used raw spice to create a powerful drug that Supreme Chancellor Finis Valorum sent Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas to investigate. It's literally a drug. It's literally a narcotic dust. And this is canon. If I go over to the legend, yeah, known as narco spice, was slang for various mind-altering drugs. Liter- Varieties included Ril or Ryle, and the strongest and most expensive, Glitter Stem. The planet Kessel was rich with these spices, which were harvested from dangerous mines at one point in history by slave labor. Okay, history behind the scenes. Yeah, yeah. It's a drug. It's a drug. So how are you going to introduce the concept of like spice cream? The wording should be a warning to you, because in this world, spice has been a drug. It's been a drug. Why would you introduce that as something that you put on food? That doesn't exist. Why would you do that? This may be just me, but I'd love to have a main character in a Star Wars movie that actually looks alien and less human-like, but they just don't explore those possibilities. No, because one, it'd be too expensive to have a person in prosthesis all the time. Look at my sarcasm. Look. It'd be too expensive. Meanwhile, these shows are getting 200 to 300 million dollar budgets. But you can't have an alien creature or an alien species as the main character, because everyone has to be human. Every main character in Star Wars has to be human. All of them. And on top of that, maybe even General just explored a different species of people in the Star Wars universe. No, the different species of Star Wars and universe are secondary. Humans are always at the forefront. You can't have like a creature. You can't have like some sort of different species. You can't have like a Rodian, a main character. You can't have like what is it, a Duros. You can't have like a Wookiee main character, and as the main character, not like a secondary main character, like as the main character, like the person you put up at the front of your poster. You can't have one of those. No, it'd be too much. So it's what went wrong with Star Wars, and I keep coming back to this because I really need to stay on topic here. What went wrong with Star Wars is that they thought the people who are in charge of Star Wars now think they can do a better job than George Lucas in delivering a story that can actually be respected. Because as it stands right now, no one with half a brain. Okay, there we go. No one with half a brain would look at Star Wars right now and say it's fine, because it's not. Some, good to see you. Hello, hello. We are talking about where Star Wars went wrong. I won't continue on much longer because I frankly got everything out of my system that I really wanted to say about Star Wars, but the way Star Wars is right now is I can't say it's beyond repair, cuz it's entirely possible for Star Wars. YouTube ain't acting right today. It's my OBS. It's disconnecting a little bit. Hopefully it hasn't ruined your view. But the way Star Wars is right now, I can't say that damage is irreparable, because anything can be fixed if you realize there's a problem. Now, the reason why Star Wars probably won't be fixed is because the people who are in charge of it do not see a problem, but they see a problem with the people who see a problem. Just read somewhere that the beginning after the end is getting animated. Really now? Hold on, let me see. And yes, sorry. Oh, okay. Hold on, let me see. Wait, this was back in February, though. This was back in February. Madhouse Production is giving its animation. We'll see. We'll see. I'll wait for an official trailer. I'll wait for an official trailer. But don't feel sorry for Star Wars. They put themselves. That's why I said almost irreparable. It's in a really bad state, but it is fixable. It's just actually fixing it and consistently continue trying to fix it. But that's the problem, though, Halster. There's an issue and problem with how Star Wars is being done right now. But the people in charge do not see a problem, so they're not going to do anything. They will argue and say, like, oh, the bad review scores are from people review bombing the show, instead of acknowledging that they have poor writers and poor directors and poor headliners for these shows. They will say that people like me and Star Wars Theory and Every Frame of Pause are saying, hateful things about Star Wars as it is right now, but will not acknowledge that they don't truly understand Star Wars like they say they do. But still expect everyone to just accept it as it is and then just consume product. See, the reason why Star Wars may never be fixed is because the people who are in charge of it don't see a problem and will continue to throw money at it, expecting those cracks across, like, say, for instance, I were to knock a hole in my wall. I am not. Just to make an example, I'm not. But say I knock a hole into my wall. Several holes, even. Like, say I knock several holes into my wall. And then I just cover it up with some paper. It's discolored. It doesn't match. It's just discolored. And I'm just telling people, and you guys know, it's all like, hey Q, we know you got some holes in your walls, and it's all like, oh, don't worry about it. It's this piece of paper will cover it. Don't worry. There's gaping holes in there. Bugs can get in and out. Who knows what's lying in between the lining of my walls? I don't know. I don't look at my walls because there's no opening. But I just got a sheet of paper here, and it's just covering up the holes. I haven't gone through the lengths of trying to fix it. I'm just covering it up and throwing more stuff over the top so I can hope that people will forget that the holes are even there, instead of me actually fixing it so it can be nice, clean, without a spot on it. I'm just covering it up and just throwing more stuff over it in the hopes that people won't acknowledge it anymore. Won't acknowledge the problem. That's Star Wars right now. There's holes all over the place. The foundation is spotty at best. And all that's being done to keep Star Wars going is just putting wallpaper over these holes in the hope that no one will not notice the holes, so that they can move on. How much do you think T-Bait webcomic will catch up to the web novel? I mean, Turtle Me is refining the webcomic to be a more refined version of the novel. So I can't really say, because I don't know how much farther the web novel goes. Don't tell me, because I don't want to know. I'm only just taking in the webcomic. But it's kind of hard to say. It really does depend on Turtle Me, to be quite honest. One of the things that made me mad is that I have been waiting for Skeleton Crew ever since it was announced, and they keep delaying it, because they're trying to push out all these dumb shows now that no one wants. Like, remember when we were supposed to be getting that bounty hunting game, and then that game got canceled? And now we're getting an Outlaws game, but it's not as interesting as that bounty hunter game we were supposed to be getting, or even that rumored Mandalorian first-person shooter that we were supposed to be getting as well. So, and you can't say they ain't got money. You cannot say that Star Wars or the people in charge ain't got money. They are backed by one of the biggest industries in the entire history of the world. They don't know what the word bankrupt means. They don't know what I don't have enough money to do this means. So you can't tell me they ain't got the money to make Skeleton Crew and all this other stuff happen. Another thing that gets me is that does anyone else, and I gotta say this, does anyone else get the feeling like they're doing stuff like, we're not giving you what you want, we're giving you what we think you'll like. We're giving you what we like and hope you'll like. Instead of, we're giving you what you like. See, if you give people what they like, they'll come back. If you give people what you think they'll like because you like it, there's no guarantee those people are gonna come back. But there's a lot of, we're giving you what we like and hope you like. Your voice is a little bit like Tristan Tate. Who's Tristan Tate? Who's Tristan Tate? I have no idea who that is. The brother of Andrew Tate? Brother of Andrew Tate. No, that's an insult. That's an insult. How dare you? how dare you? No, no, never, never that. No, no, no. I refuse. I refuse. I refuse. I'll be happy to take all of his money, but that's all. That's all. That's all. I'll be happy to take all the money that he's got, but I will no, no, no thank you. No thank you. I got sense and people actually like to see my face. But the way Star Wars feels right now is, it feels like we're making stuff. There's no guarantee it's going to be stuff that you like, but we're making stuff. And we really, really want you to like it. Instead of it feeling like, it just feels like stuff is being made with Star Wars now that doesn't feel Star Wars, and yet we're still supposed to be fine with it. Not say any word. I wish there was another Force Unleashed. Yeah, it's another clone, but I wonder where did Vader send him? Look, I would pay money to play another Force Unleashed game. I would. I would. How is that an insult? Do you not know? Wait, wait, Soulmate, do you not know what happened between the Tate brothers? Do you not know what happened between the Tate brothers? Hmm. Innocent until proven guilty. Nah. Nah, don't. They are outside and winning the case. I mean, I don't care. Just, I'm fine just being me. And my voice is mine. My voice is mine. Doesn't need to be close to anybody's. My voice is fine with being mine. Have to look that up later. Don't need to tell me. Oh, I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say. However, back to Star Wars. So much of it is being done as an attempt to get people to like it, rather than it being good and people like it, based on its own merits. Instead, it's trying to be thrown out there into the open, hoping that people will, accept it just because it's Star Wars, which shouldn't be the case. I just made the point that your voice just felt like his. Nope, my voice is mine. My voice is mine. My voice is mine. If anything, if my voice sounds like his, then I would like some residuals from you, Mr. Tate, because my voice apparently sounds like yours. But yeah. We'll move on from that. We'll move on from that. Don't dwell on it too long. We'll move on from that. But I just feel like Star Wars as a whole doesn't match up to what it used to. I mean, after Unleash 2, when the clone killed the clone you play as, love your voice, man. You should try becoming a voice artist. I mean, that's also what I've been working on. I'm technically known as a voice artist. Every single time I'm trying to speak, and OBS just keeps interrupting me. I'm trying to speak, and OBS just keeps interrupting. I'm trying to talk to my peoples. But yeah, it's not the first time that. Hold on, what did I say the last? Oh yeah. I'm technically known as a voice actor, and OBS not doing good today. It's fine. I'm not gonna actually. You know what? Let me get rid of this. Hold on. But yes, this isn't the first time that people said they like the sound of my voice, because it's because apparently people say it sounds nice. So I'm thankful of it. What is OBS? OBS is how I'm streaming to you guys right now. It is like a program that lets me record my videos, lets me stream my games and stuff. That everything that I do it through OBS. So it was having like a connection issue. I'll do some troubleshooting later on to find out what that issue is, so that way I never run into that, or it stops running into that. But it's just today. It's random. It's random how spotty it tends to be. Uh, but yeah. I think I said everything I needed to say about Star Wars, and it really went wrong when they decided to try and take everything that George Lucas did and try to, instead of taking the story further, they're just doing all sorts of different things and hoping that it sticks to the wall. And that's an improper way to do storytelling if you're trying to do a continuation. Because just making random stuff and then saying like, oh, it's part of the universe, and then just leaving it at that, and then hoping that people like it, is not a competent way of portraying an expanded universe. And mind you, this isn't the expanded universe. This is the current canon, which is, a lot less interesting. Because remember when Star Wars used to be truly interesting? It used to be so interesting. Show us your setup, and also that sick looking collection back there. There's not much to my setup. It's very, very basic. It's just a laptop, my mic, my webcam that's just right here, my light that's behind my webcam so that it doesn't move, and that's basically it. I don't have like a whole bunch of stuff on my desk, so it's not even really worth looking at. But you also say nice, sick-looking collection back there. Yeah, that's one of my shelves of manga. My other one is over on the side of my room next to my closet, and that has all of my manga in alphabetical order, from B's all the way down to the M's, and my solo leveling stuff is over there. And then these are the N's, O's. Yeah, N's and O's. Basically, Naruto up top, One Piece, all of them, currently, all of them, and then all of One Punch Man. And over there, I have single time! it keeps OBS just keeps flip flopping. OBS keeps flip flopping. But yeah, over there I got all of my let me see. Cuz I'm getting off topic here. Yeah, over there I got Bleach. I have Dragon Ball Super, Fire Force, Jujutsu Kaisen, and of course all of My Hero Academia. That's basically what I got. But I haven't been picking up I have been picking up a whole bunch of stuff lately because I've really been focusing on the channel. After hitting 4.9K, I've really been focusing on doing more stuff for you guys as the channel grows larger and I get more members and stuff, more subscribers, all that sort of thing. I've just been really focusing on doing this even more than I have before versus getting actual stuff. So OBS still creating problems. Yeah, it would seem so, but I'm not gonna let it stop me. I'm not gonna let it stop me. So I was just continuing on. I'm definitely not the only one, but Rey turned me away from Star Wars because the first movie I was like, I don't really know like how Rey was portrayed. She felt like she was just perfect at everything, but maybe they'll give her flaws and stuff to develop her further in other movies. Yeah, it turns out they did none of that stuff, and you're still supposed to accept Rey as that type of individual and be fine with it. And if you call out incompetence in writing, then it's either not that serious or this film wasn't made for you. Who is it made for? Because Star Wars fans will find problems with consistency. So are you just going to call out? Are you only going to call out the Star Wars fans that have issues with what has been established? Bro, you must be a rich person purchasing this much cool stuff. I am jealous. Here's the thing, Some. This stuff was purchased over the years. None of it was all at once. None of it. This was just like over the years. Like back when I worked at Best Buy, back when I worked at Home Goods, back when I worked at Harris Teeter. Uh, this was stuff built up over years. None of this stuff was like instantaneously brought on one day. Like some of this stuff I had before I even started doing YouTube. So I wouldn't say I'm a super rich person, but this was just stuff done over the course of several years. The other movies came out and I despised Rey and they made Finn a joke. Kylo Ren didn't really do it for me and I just gave up on Star Wars and it's just gotten worse. The only good thing was a Mandalorian, but that's an anomaly. That and Andor, that's the only thing. So, frankly, the appeal for Star Wars for me is at an all-time low. I'm literally not interested in anything that Star Wars produces at this moment because frankly what they produce just comes off as all like we're trying to fill our agenda quota or we're trying to appeal to this demographic or that demographic, and I feel like that's not what Star Wars is about. You can create your own stories that can incorporate that sort of things, but the people have to be good writers. See, you can have characters with two moms in a Star Wars story, but if they're written correctly, if they are written well, and mind you, when I say correctly, I mean written in a competent way, not just shoehorned in and expected to be accepted. They have to be done in a way where it makes sense and they're written well enough where they're not just shown as like characters just thrown in there just because they're trying to say like, look what we got in our show, because you can tell when characters are written that way. Because you can have you can have that sort of thing inside of your shows and movies without it feeling like, oh, you just threw it in here because you're just trying to appeal to a certain demographic that you hope will buy tickets for in order to see the movie. It really does come down to good writing. And Star Wars really hasn't had good writing in a long time. They haven't had good writing in a long time, and that's the reason why people don't like the stuff. It ain't got nothing to do with characters being gay or whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with any of that stuff. It has to do with how poor the writing is. Because if a story is trash, you're not going to make us stay interested. Because if the story is bad, we tend to distance ourselves away from stuff that's bad. Which country am I from? United States of America. But if the writing is poor, then interest will go down. If the writing is good, then interest will go up. And you don't get to say that your writing is good. Star Wars doesn't get to say our writing for these characters is good. They don't get to say that. They can't say that. Because then it's all like, I wrote this. This is good. We don't like it. You don't know what good writing is. No, you don't know what good writing is. Because if we liked it, if your writing was good, we would say so. If writing is poor for a story, people will say something about it. And it is not the person who is reading this story's fault for it being bad. It is the writer's fault for it being bad. So as long as these Star Wars shows are written poorly, are directed poorly, are casted poorly, as long as these Star Wars shows are done this way, we will never get good Star Wars again. Now, if they say they're good at writing, they're on something else. See, and I had this thought. I was playing Okami last night, and I had this thought in my mind. People who can't act write. People who can't write get to direct and write Star Wars shows. That is where we're at right now. Good night, everybody! If you can't act, write. If you can't write, you'll probably get picked up to do a Star Wars show. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. See, everything I liked about Star Wars, it's basically non-existent now. I can only relish in what I liked about Star Wars in the past. Like, I can't keep that same feeling now because Star Wars isn't making me want to keep that same feeling. I don't care. I don't care. I should, but I don't. I should care, but I don't. And it's ludicrous that Star Wars has fallen so far that we can look at both Marvel and Star Wars and say, yeah, y'all need Jesus. Y'all need help. Because it used to be when Marvel had that singular issue. Now it's Star Wars and Marvel and DC. So I'm just gonna stick with video games and anime. Because stick with video games and anime and singular movies. That's it. That's what I'm going to stick with. I'm going to watch my Dune. I'm going to watch my Dune Part 2s. I'm going to watch my animes. I'm going to watch my different series and whatnot, but I'm not going to engage in Star Wars because frankly, they've lost it for me, and I at this point, unless they say, "Hey, we are making," I only care about the games, and even then the games don't appeal to me. They have to say, hey, we are making a Mandalorian game where you get to make your own Mandalorian, or we're making a Jedi and Sith game where you can make your own Jedi and Sith, and you get to go through the path of either being a Jedi or a Sith or even a bounty hunter or whatever. Basically, your classes you can get from Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. What was it? Star Wars The Old Republic? I think it was Star Wars The Old Republic, the MMO. But put it on consoles and, make it more in line with what makes Star Wars good. Like, get a good developer. Don't get Ubisoft. Stop using Ubisoft to make your Star Wars games. Stop. Lord Jesus. Stop getting Ubisoft to make your Star Wars games, please. But get someone else to do it. But if they announce those, then I'll get back into Star Wars. But as it stands right now, I do not care what else they got going on. I don't. Because they brought the series down so far that the only passion I have for Star Wars just relies on the memorabilia that I got. Like the old Darth Maul double lightsaber that's, tucked away. You can kind of see it in the back there right next to my bed beneath my windowsill. Got his double lightsaber. You know when they used to create lightsabers that you can just press a button on and flick it and then it would just pop out? That's the only thing I got. My Death Watch helmet over there. My Mace Windu lightsaber right there. And that's it. That's all. That's the only feelings I have left for Star Wars because as it stands right now, they haven't done anything to make me want them. Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor were the last great things about Star Wars that we got to fully enjoy. And I feel like it's going to be a long time before we get something else that we can fully enjoy Star Wars wise. I'm being honest. I'm not trying to be overly negative. I'm just pointing out the flaws in a series that shouldn't have any. I'm not trying to like bash on Disney too much, even though they do deserve it. Because just because they're Disney doesn't mean they are without flaws. Because they got plenty of them. They just ain't telling everybody. But it's it's sad that I have to look at Star Wars and be like, yeah, I can go without that. Used to be that way for Marvel, and now Marvel's in a state where I can like, yeah, I can go without that. I can go a couple of years without watching a single Marvel movie because I see no reason to engage in it anymore. That's how it is with Star Wars, and it's sad that we've reached this point. And it's even sadder is that no matter how much a person like me will get up on a platform and talk for like, what was it, an hour and 47 minutes worth of time about why Star Wars has gone in the wrong direction, it will still continue in the direction it's going because the few people that say it's good, the few people that say, "Oh, The Acolyte is fine," The Acolyte is a good show, the episodes are amazing, the few people who voice that are going to be the ones who are listened to, and more of that stuff is going to be produced. Top King, it's good to see you. It's not even that it has flaws, it's that there's many major flaws and glaring problems. See, I'm not saying that, and I know I sounded like I said it before, but I'm not truly saying that Star Wars should be without a single flaw in it, because there's no series that exists that doesn't have a flaw in it, except for the Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, Fellowship of the Ring, the Twin Towers, and the Return of the King, those were actually flawless movies when you think about it. One of the rarest of a trilogy being basically flawless. Those movies were just fantastic with with absolutely nothing wrong to really say about them. But what I mean for Star Wars is that sure, it can have its flaws, but don't let it be so major and don't let it be so glaring that it causes Star Wars to be seen in a negative light. Because that's where we are at with Star Wars right now. It's now being seen in a negative light, with only the small minority of people saying like, "Oh no, it's still fine, it's still fine," and those are that small group of people, versus the vast majority who says like, "Yeah, Star Wars sucks now." That small group is being listened to because it's stroking the ego of those who are in charge of Disney and Star Wars as like, "Hey, let's not make it for the vast majority of people that basically this entire series has basically become big because of. Let's listen to the people that like whatever we do, whatever we push out, whatever we give them. Let's make stuff for them because they are the fans that matter." Am I going to see the Deadpool movie next month? Yes, I would very much like to see the Deadpool movie. Lucas shouldn't have given his company to a major company. That's what a lot of people are saying. And the Acolyte TV show is just hammering that fact in more and more and more. But yes, I would very much like to see the Deadpool movie next month. I would very much like to. It's on my list of things to do, among other things. Because if any of you haven't seen my community posts, I will be starting Sakamoto Days next week. Might as well go ahead and get started with it instead of just waiting until the last possible second. But I think I've reached the end of my rant for Star Wars as a whole, and I think I've said enough. And however this rant is perceived by people in the future, hey, I said what I said, and I have no regrets about it, and I'm gonna go about my day. But Top King, Skeleton, Some, Holster, who else was here? Psycho, Mary, I think CJ was here as well. Yeah, CJ, Jake, everyone who showed up for today's session of me talking about Star Wars. Thank you for just listening to me just go off and just rant. about this series as a whole because I'm disappointed. I'm just disappointed in this whole franchise as a whole. I really am. It could have been so much better, but they chose to do not just the minimum, but in terms of like writing and casting and portrayal and acting, things that you would expect from a multi-billion-dollar company like Disney to fund. Kitty was here, even here for Kitty as well. You would expect someone like Disney to make sure that they did it right, considering that this is one of the franchises, like one of the IPs that they now own along with Marvel, and they really needed to go smoothly because they haven't really been making any good decisions. And they need to make sure that the people who are in charge actually know what they're doing to ensure that the people they expect to watch their TV shows and movies continue to do so. But as long as Disney keeps giving people like Kathleen Kennedy and Leslie Headland plenty of room to maneuver and worm and ooze their way into Star Wars, it's only going to get worse from here. Sad but true, but it's only going to get worse from here. But I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I probably won't be talking about Star Wars anymore after this. That's how done I am. I probably won't be talking about Star Wars anymore unless those aforementioned games that I said I would like to see get made. Yeah, those aforementioned games that I said I would like to see, the Mandalorian game or the Jedi game or the Sith game, either one of those three get made, I don't really care about anything else Star Wars related. But you've all been a wonderful audience. Thank you for just taking the time just to listen to me just air out how I feel about Star Wars as a whole. Take it however you will. I just had to get it out of my system because I'm just tired of it. But yeah, you've been a wonderful audience. I'm looking forward to our next session together. There will be some Elden Ring sessions later this week, probably tomorrow, but it won't go too long because I also have some practice, some like band practice. But yeah, there will be some more V Rising and there will be some more Elden Ring as we prepare for Shadow of the Erdtree next week. Wonderful audience. Thank you for your continued support of this channel. And with that being said, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples!